into schools. Why has this become a sudden critical priority over the last 2 years? It's become a priority because back in January 2011, it became very, very clear that the government had decided that ICT in schools was a waste of space, they didn't like it didn't fit into their agenda, and it was going, as in completely going. It would not be taught, it would not be allowed into schools. It was essentially a dead parrot. Over the last 2 years, a huge amount of work has been done, not just by ourselves, but an awful lot of other organisations that we've been working very, very closely with. And we are now at the fantastic situation that the Department for Education is now stuffed with civil servants who all believe that computing is very important, that it is a subject discipline, and that it has to be a core subject taught from primary school right through to the end of secondary school. One of the very most pleasing things that's happened over the last year is that back in the summer, the Department for Education, once we had won them round, in collaboration with all of the other organisations that have been working on this, once we won them round to the point of view that they needed to change from just scrapping ICT to actually introducing a subject discipline, they decided that they wanted to talk to the BCS and the Royal Academy of Engineering, and that between us we should work in partnership to coordinate the development of a new computing curriculum. And what the Department for Education wanted is for computer science to be at the heart of that new curriculum. And if you think about the change from January 2011, when their opinion was ICT is rubbish, we'll just scrap it because it's a waste of time, to now, where they're saying computer science is of paramount importance and must be taught in all schools, that is such a huge change in view. They do still recognise that digital literacy is incredibly important. So although computer science as a discipline is something that maybe the same sort of number of children will want to take at GCSE as do physics, every single child has to be taught digital literacy and has to be competent in digital literacy by the time they leave school. So that's important. You'll notice on this slide I've added the Computing at School Group's logo. They have been absolutely, fundamentally important to making all these changes happen. The Computing at School Group is currently about 3,500 strong. It's almost entirely school teachers, although there's a large number of professionals from, for example, BCS, but also from companies like Microsoft and Google and Facebook, members of that. They have been working incredibly hard on the ground to actually get schools to introduce computing. And it's only thanks to them that we've made all the progress that we have. The other astounding thing that has happened is that computer science has now been included in the EBAC as the fourth science. So the Department for Education, the government, has recognised that computer science is the fourth science in schools. That is a tremendous advance. Back in, a couple of years back, we were lucky enough to get an interview with Nick Gibb, who was at the time Minister for Schools. And when we tried to ask him about the EBAC at that time, he said, well, basically said, forget it. You would have to prove that computer science is harder than Latin. Well, we didn't, but we did prove that computer science is harder than physics. And that means it's in the EBAC. I kid you not, we spent over a year working with an awful lot of organisations and did an in-depth analysis of 2 of the existing GCSEs in computer science. We compared them to the existing GCSEs in physics, and we proved conclusively and completely rigorously that they were in fact more rigorous than the current physics GCSE. Then, thanks to the fact that we have very, very good relationships with Google, and Eric Schmidt is very, very influential, when he came along to Cambridge and said, do you know what, computer science should be in the EBAC, and the BCS had written a report saying so, the next day, the Department for Education put out a press release saying, we are going to accept all the recommendations in the BCS report and computer science in the EBAC. And it is the fourth science. Well, that's all fine and lovely, it's great. So we have persuaded, with all of our fellow organisations, after a lot of work, we've persuaded the government that yes, computing has to happen, and it has to happen in primary school. Well, that won't happen without the teachers. And right now we have 25,000 schools-ish, and possibly a third of those can actually really feel comfortable about teaching computer science or computing. So we need new teachers. We also need to work with the existing teachers to make sure they can now teach this new brave curriculum that's coming on stream. Well, we have very good relations now with the teaching agency. back in September, they announced that from September, there would no longer be any places allocated for ICT training teachers. As of September, the only teacher training places that they would allocate would be for computer science and or with ICT, but it would have to be about computer science. What was very pleasing from our point of view is that they looked at the computer science curriculum that CAS, the Computing School Group, had developed, which they spent a couple of years putting together, with ourselves, with people from Microsoft and Google and the like, and they decided to base the subject knowledge requirements for future computer science teachers on that curriculum. So we know full well that what future computer science teachers will know is the right sort of stuff. So that was another huge step forward. So that's great. It's great to have those teacher training places available, but it's kind of expensive if you want to go and train to be a teacher. You will have to pay £9,000 fees, possibly, if you went to UCL, for example, or Manchester. Michael Gove announced back in October that he was going to make a number of rather nice scholarships available for training teachers. So there are 100 £20,000 scholarships available every year for graduates who have a first-class honours degree or a 2-1 in any subject. So that could be in history or music. Of course, it would be rather nice if it was in computer science. And if those people can demonstrate they are suitably good at computing, and the people who are going to decide whether or not they're suitable or not to be allowed to train on one of these scholarships is us. We are in fact running this scheme. Once somebody's demonstrated that they have the right knowledge and they've got the right degree, they get a £20,000 scholarship. That's very, very good. That puts on computer science, puts computer science on the same status as physics or chemistry or mathematics in terms of those £20,000 scholarships. This has only just started running, but so far we've had 400 expressions of interest in the scholarships, and the applications only went online this month, and over the last couple of weeks so far about 180, I think, people have actually filled in the application form so far. So that's going quite well at the moment. This scheme isn't just being run by ourselves, because in order to try and handle all the kind of interviews and all the rest of the stuff that goes on with these scholarships is well beyond the resources that we have, because basically we don't have any money. What's been wonderful is all of the companies that you see on the screen are all helping to run the selection process and recruitment for these teachers, and many of them are also offering to mentor trainee teachers when they're actually on the job. So that is really, really good, and it's also really, really good that those companies realise that the BCS is running that scheme and that we are central to the government's policy in making computing happen in schools. At the bottom there you'll see a logo for the Network of Teaching Excellence. The idea is that new trainee teachers will also be introduced to this network. This network is something that we're setting up at BCS, and I'm going to talk to you about it in a moment. Sorry, I didn't realise it was on my next slide. Here we are, I'm coming to it now. So, the Network of Teaching Excellence in Computer Science. We set this up back in September. And one of the things we realised is you've got to have the teachers in the school. Right, it's great, we've got these scholarships, fantastic and wonderful. We've got new PGEs who are also fantastic and wonderful, but we've actually got 25,000 schools. All the existing teachers that were previously teaching ICT now need help and support to teach computer science. That is one hell of a big task. We need all the help we can get. Well, who do you turn to? Right, where can we go where there are people who know a lot about computer science? Computer science departments in universities. Great, it's great on a number of fronts. First of all, they now have a subject called computing that's going to be taught in school. That flips a switch in those departments. Whereas previously, they actually didn't really like ICT. Now, they are very excited about the idea of computing coming on board. Two, all of the universities now have rather more of a responsibility for doing outreach activities, since they've all got to charge quite large amounts for their fees. So they now have a very large interest in actually wanting to support schools. We've put together this network which essentially develops these new teachers called master teachers. That's DFE jargon, not my jargon. A master teacher is an expert at the pedagogy that goes with their subject, and also in developing other teachers in that subject. So what we do is we are creating a number of these master teachers. They will link in with their local computer science departments at university. Together, they will put together CPD opportunities for neighbouring schools. We set this up in September. Over the first 3 months, we've already managed to put on CPD courses for 250 teachers. What's very, very good about this network is that it's had seed funding from the Department of Education. So this is good because A, it means the Department of Education know that we are trying to solve the problem, that we are central to seeing the problem solved. 2, it means they recognise the problem needs to be solved and are prepared to put some money into it. And 3, it means it helps to attract help from other organisations, and I've listed here those organisations that actually provided some finance to help start this whole process, this whole network going. So far, there are 600 schools who are part of the network, and 120 of those have said they would like to be lead schools. A lead school is one that's going to help to develop other schools in their area and actually put on CPD courses. And there are 70 universities that have signed up to this, and I would like to thank Tom Craig, who's chair of YPG over there at the back, chewing on his chewing gum, being cool and casual, who's very much responsible for getting those 70 universities to sign up, which is tremendous. And 18 of those universities are Russell Group universities, and it does include universities like Cambridge, Imperial, Manchester, Birmingham, etc. So that is a fantastic success story. There are all the universities, you can see very, very quickly, because I'm not going to. That network at the moment, we hope will get more Department for Education funding to carry on for the 5 years. We've yet to find out whether we get the green light on that or not. I was rather hoping I might find out today, but I haven't. Okay, and finally, one other thing that we've been doing, we've been working in Scotland with the Royal Society of Edinburgh. In Scotland, they're ahead of us. They already have computing in the curriculum. They have also just changed the definition of their curriculum, so it's much more aspirational and sort of setting the direction of travel rather than being prescriptive about what teachers should do. This has meant that a lot of the teachers in Scotland have been looking around for resources that they can use in the classroom. So BCS, in partnership with the Royal Society of Edinburgh, spent last year developing resources for schools. They're based on Scratch and App Inventor. There is a massive amount of resources now that have come out of that project. And what's great is that the Scottish Government has endorsed them and actually recommended them for use in all schools. And again, that's been done not just in partnership with the Royal Society of Edinburgh, but with the Computing at School group. And I'll skip that. Oh no, I won't. Another thing that's actually rather nice, Google this year announced that they were going to donate $1 million to Raspberry Pi to spread lots of Raspberry Pis around the world, and I think that was going to result in something like, can't quite do the sums, but something like 15,000 Raspberry Pis going to be given away. And they identified 6 organisations that were absolutely key to helping get those Raspberry Pis into schools. One of those organisations is the Computing at School group, and they're going to have 1,000 of those Raspberry Pis to put into schools around the country, which is very, very good. And this last slide is just to say a huge thank you to the various different organisations that have been instrumental in helping us to get computing as a statutory subject that will be taught from primary school right the way through to secondary school, and that have helped to persuade the Gove that computer science is the 4th science. That's it. Thank you very much.
She went so beautifully on time. We've got a little bit of time for a few questions.
Ted Draper from Southwest Branch. Bill, congratulations, that's a fantastic story. I think we need to give him another round of applause. Absolutely terrific news. Now, implementation is key, you're absolutely right. So, just to dig a bit, what makes a good candidate for that 20k scholarship?
Okay, first of all, we've got to know about computer science in terms of the CAS curriculum that I alluded to. You can find it on the website. The second thing is they're going to be extremely good at evangelising computing to their fellow teachers in other schools, and they are going to be extremely good at what I term upward management, which is keeping control of their head teacher and making sure that their head teacher supports computing and actually makes it work. Also, that they have the ambition to be a leader in teaching, because there are only 100 of those scholarships. Now that's fantastic, but every year you want to recruit about 800 people. So we want those 100 people to be picked so that they're going to be future leaders in pedagogy and CPD and the teaching world. So that's easy. Oh, and walk on water.
Do you have any other questions?
James from Belfast. I think it's nice, and thanks to you and all the various groups that have actually contributed to this great achievement here. We have the fourth region of the UK, that's Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland is in a state of, it's in a fluid state. And there is a lot of things happening there that I feel the good news that we are hearing should not just only be extended for them to hear, but who want to be actively involved in this here. Northern Ireland is home to at least the Russell Group University, my alma mater, and also to the University of Ulster, where currently I am an academic. And I think also, I know of the great effort being made there by the branch and the SG that is there. And I think it would be very, very good to bring him on board. And I know the all-party group in the Legislative Assembly, they now have a listening ear and will want to work closely with us. But we need to really flag these initiatives before them, and it would be great for us to engage them wholeheartedly.
I completely agree. I think it's really, really important. This has all been very much focused on England. And the reason it was focused on England was because we were in threat. It was essentially a crisis for England. We were likely to lose ICT altogether, which was a complete disaster, which is why the focus has been on there. But I totally agree that there has to also be support for Northern Ireland and Wales and Scotland too. Scotland, as I say, is in a lucky position of being ahead of us. Wales is in a lucky position of having Tom Crick there, who talks to the Minister regularly. But Northern Ireland is somewhere we need to spend more time actually doing so.
Any further questions?
George Nicholson from Manchester. How, given that computing is a numerical science, do you plan to teach it to 5-year-olds?
You can teach 5-year-olds, you don't necessarily need to do it numerically. There's some absolutely superb resources that come out of New Zealand over the last few years. CS Unplugged, where they very much focus on learning by playing, which is a great way of primary school kids to learn stuff. I totally recommend you go and look at their website. They have superb resources, and it's designed precisely for primary school children who actually can't do algebra and don't know how to type, but do know how to play games. So CS Unplugged.
So that's basically just the sort of general idea of how you arrange things, rather than doing the actual nuts and bolts programming.
Yes, the kind of things in primary school you can introduce. Eventually, you can get them onto things like Scratch and Kodu, where it's visual programming, so it's drag and drop, and they get to do very exciting things visually by creating animations and stuff, which gets them going. Prior to that, you can get them on. It is actually playing games in the classroom, but they are structured games that teach them how to do things like sorting networks. There's some sorting networks that are particularly good for kids to do interesting things collaboratively, and where they learn a bit about concurrency and parallel programming at the same time as sorting and ordering numbers and things.
Thanks.
I'll share. Peter Buchanan. I'm Convention Group. I've just been checking. This is a really, really great story. It really ought to be front and centre on the BCS website. Can you please, 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 immediately after this, make sure that it gets there? And we ought to be boasting about it.
I'll go do it now.
Any last questions? No. In which case, I think we'd like to thank you again.